Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Stephen Haggerty. Can't even say my own surname right today. It's Friday, let me off. But today I'm joined by the founder of Interesting Content. Even the name sparks interest, so well done on that. Mr. Suds Singh, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. And I sometimes forget my own name, not because I'm all my luck, because sometimes I start the day off with a shot of vodka, like everyone should.
Yeah, you must be part Russian.
Oh
I feel
man,
like.
I in my past life I probably was.
Yeah, you need to just go. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been to Russia?
Not to Russia, but I've been to my best mate is Polish, so I go.
Ah, very similar.
He's taken me to a couple of the trips to his country. It's amazing. Have you? Have you?
I haven't been to Russia. I haven't been to Poland. But it's on my. I would love to do Russia. I'd love to just go off and explore and hopefully not get shot. That's sort
Oh,
of the goal of that holiday, if you can call it that.
hopefully the only shots will be vodka.
Exactly. Vodka in the morning, vodka in the. Although I haven't drank in a year, so
Oh,
if I go now, I'll be like, phew.
oh, good for you, man.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's no whenever you say you haven't drank, it's like, oh my god, you must be an ex-alcoholic or whatever. It's like, no, I didn't even drink much in the first place, which actually made me think, what's the point of drinking at all? But yeah, in October it's a year, so I'm either gonna celebrate with like 7 bottles of red wine, which is probably the one thing I do actually miss, or just carry it on. So we'll see. But alas, this isn't about me. This is about you, my friend. Let's start off by, I guess let's start off by you just saying, what is interesting content in terms of your business, not just in general.
So interesting content is essentially, like I really believe that everyone, every one of us walking around has a unique story. That could be where you're from or your upbringing or the things you do in life that makes you who you are. And, like really, I looked really deep into this with my colleagues and, I spoke to a few of my fellow founders and essentially, like we have a unique reasons for doing what we do. And I believe that if you bring that out and you share that with someone, they will remember that story in terms of, okay, Stephen does this because he had this, and this is how it led to him doing what he's doing right now. So essentially, interesting content is about exploring what makes you unique. In the world of business, it's more like, look, you buy Pepsi or you buy Coke. There's a reason why you do something, and like it could just be on the surface, it's available and you like the taste or whatever, but there are certain reasons why you are kind of drawn to something, and we help companies find what that is and actually explore that and put that out to the market.
I love that. I mean, my first question from that has to be, why do you do what you do then? What is your story?
You know what? This is a good question. From an entrepreneurship perspective, my granddad was a really big entrepreneur, and he's essentially, like my hero. And growing up watching him, uh, do his business, create his kind of empire in a way, was something that I kind of grew up with, and without knowing, subtly, all of those things kind of rubbed off on me. Um, so when I was working for my old company and for previous companies, I'd always had this feeling of wanting to do something for myself. And around 2011, I was working for this great company, and it went from 15 people to 50 people.
Oh, wow.
I mean, obviously, I would take all the success, and it was all down to me.
Yeah,
But
of course, naturally.
just just seeing that process really kind of inspired me, and I thought, you know what, I can do this for myself. And it took me, I mean, I think it was probably a bit of naivety, a bit of stupidity to walk away from a fairly safe job. I was doing pretty well, and going from that to to having literally no income, just living off savings and money I had saved up for setting up the business. And like as they say, like shit got real after a year into it, and I thought, you know what, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. Especially
the,
when I,
the the shiny bubble that all outsiders see in terms of like a perfectly run business. was officially broken.
It was, and you know, there are a lot of lots of people advocating for entrepreneurship and saying it's the best thing ever. But you talk to founders, we and you yourself know, like there are many ups and downs that we
Yeah,
don't really discuss or like really sort of talk about it openly. Whereas we just talk about the successes, the IPOs, the things that you do once you've
yeah,
made it. Whereas that journey, I kind of like, in a way, that journey toughens you up and prepares you for being very, very resilient. So yeah, like just to sort of come back to that, yeah, like I was stupid. Then I set up my own company, saw how hard it was, and I've survived so far to tell the tale.
I mean, yeah. Listen, if they say what is it that if you survive the first year of business, you're already doing pretty well. So you're already doing pretty well. Let's put it that way. For you, when you made that decision to go, listen, I'm gonna follow my grandfather's footsteps. I'm gonna set up my own business. One that must have been a huge moment for you as well to sort of like step into that new identity. But how were those early days shifting from, you know, working in normal businesses or other people's businesses, watching their growth, to going, okay, now this is my time to shine. This is my time to grow a business. My time to make my granddad proud, as it were.
Um, Good question, Stephen. I would say it was like at that time, at that moment, the way I saw it was I was being, like I was a lot younger, 10 years younger, and I think I had a lot of testosterone in terms of, look, if I can do this for these guys, I can do this for myself.
Yeah,
But a lot of it was like from a very, very young and impressionable age, I saw, my granddad doing things in his own way and being able to use his own ideas and do whatever the hell he wants to, you know. And I think that always had that, I mean, I guess I have like that kind of rebellious streak of not just following the kind of linear career path or, carving out something that I really, really wanted to do. And, I hated being told what to do sometimes. So I think
sometimes we
that,
all do. I think that's a
yeah,
really, I think that's a really common trait in founders and entrepreneurs. It's like we really just have this overarching thought of we've got to pave our own way. You know, I think one of the you mentioned about sort of the struggles earlier, that we don't talk about. I think one of the biggest struggles in those early days are often that acceptance of help,
mm,
because we go into things going, I've done, I've seen people do this, I can do this. Sure, how hard can it be, that those
yeah,
classic things? And then it's not actually that easy.
no,
It's
it's
not.
not.
It's not gonna be an overnight success. I mean, you've grown this business from zero to six figures plus, which is an incredible achievement. But that just doesn't happen without stress, without negatives, without all those things that, like you said, are perhaps are hidden away. Although most recently, I think people are starting to share a lot more, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right in terms of we are in a stage where we are allowed to express our difficulty that you're going through, not just like with close friends, but it's people are publicly saying, look, I'm suffering through mental health,
Hmm.
and these are the things I'm going through. Luckily, I don't have it as bad as some of the people I know, but I think and also going back to what you were saying about needing accepting help, like in the beginning, like after that year 2 year kind of honeymoon period, money started running out, but then I had to like think, okay, I got to get sales on the board because I was a salesperson for my previous company, and I was like, okay, look, what can I do to actually help myself to get to where I want to get to? And in the beginning, there was lots of resources on YouTube, but they're all like very, you must work hard and do this. It
Yeah.
wasn't kind of practical. And
Like
through
the
like,
Gary V hustle, 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 but no
yeah,
actual practical advice.
well, we can come back to Gary Vee later on. But what I actually did was I sat down and I spoke to my mom, and she's just like, look, just do one thing at a time.
Mm.
Start something or don't, and with the intention of finishing, or don't start it at all. And that advice, some of the best advices kind of take a while to sink in. So I was thinking about that for weeks, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something, and I'm not going to finish until it's done. Um, and that led me to start like looking at self-help books and stuff, and that helped me kind of explore this whole world of entrepreneurs who'd been through it before, and it gave me so much insight into, okay, train yourself up, mistakes. Are you there?
Yeah, I
um,
don't know what happened. I'm back.
yeah, it's like it was more like I couldn't afford a coach. I couldn't get a business coach, or I didn't have the foresight that time to get a mentor.
Sure.
So I just started reading loads and loads of books on entrepreneurship, autobiographies, and that really kind of helped me get my, like see myself at where I was at, and it sort of helped me kind of get myself out of it.
Mm. For you, I mean, it's one of those classic things, and I hate to say it, but usually our parents are right, and that bit of advice is so accurate in so many things in life because it not so much the just get started, but it's the make sure you start something with the intention of finishing it.
Yeah,
Because that for me is the crucial part. It's like you can start 101 things in life, and as entrepreneurs we both know that we probably have 101 business ideas a week,
yeah,
and whenever we walk down the street we might think, oh, actually maybe I can solve that problem a little bit better than that person's doing. But to make a successful founder and a successful entrepreneur, it is only the ideas that we sort of commit to in terms of finishing, or actually commit to in terms of building upon something. Because you could argue, like, is it ever finished? For you, when that advice sunk in, and you started to obviously go through it sounds like you went through quite a reflective period as well in
yeah.
terms of your life and business. Moving forward after that point, what changed in the business, what changed for you, and because that's the interesting bit, it's like the effect of that implementation.
Yeah, during that reflective period, I guess, like I kind of saw what my failings were or what my shortcomings were. Like I would go after the shiniest objects and say, oh yeah, we should do this, and the next moment something else came up, I'd go for that. Whereas I would never see something from start to finish,
Mm.
and that's what I realized about myself. So I thought, how can I change this? And it's all to do with things like it's all the mentality. Nothing physically changed with me, and nothing suddenly came in changed my life forever. No one said, "Oh, here's a £1 million contract.
Yeah.
Let's do business." It's more like, like I kind of realized, like, I'm in the get rich slow scheme. Like where you make every possible mistake there is to get to where you want to get to, rather than seeking that instant
Mm.
success, which doesn't really exist anywhere.
Yeah, but
Um,
so many people chase.
Yeah, and I think the me that started 10 years, 11 years ago versus me right now is more like I've seen and experienced a lot of things,
Yeah.
and a lot of it has to do with thinking long term, taking your time, and making the right decision with all the information that you have at that time, without sort of making a rash decision based on emotions. I mean, I still do. We all make decisions based on our emotions, but it's more like what do I really want to do? Who do I
Mm.
really want to hang out with? What kind of person do I want to be? And I think that is the moment that is during that time, that's what I realized.
Those questions have changed everything. For
Yeah.
you, if we bring it to present day now, how do you ensure that you yourself as the founder and obviously crucial part in the business is still in that right mindset, is still in that mindset to make sure that the business is doing everything that it needs to do, and also you're doing everything that you need to do to make sure the business has what it needs?
I would say, so we have this thing every week. We dedicate one day a month to learning. So what that means is we just sit down as a team and just watch loads of like TED Talks, read articles together, or stuff that inspires us.
Mm.
So a lot of that is to do with like continual learning. And one of the things I learned, it's like less, learning for life kind of thing, where one of the things I learned was I was like the biggest bottleneck within the business. Like I'd meddle into things like the creative side of content creation, or I'd meddle into like, let's make our payroll more efficient, or let's talk to the accountant and say, why are you doing this in this way? Whereas, I let my team and the people we bring in, or consultants and freelancers, to do what they're really good at. And I think, like, to answer that question, it's more like I let people who are around the business do what they're really good at, and I try
Yeah.
to step back. And you know what? Like, stepping back has actually helped me, because I've learned that, um, the reason these people have been assembled, or the reason we do these things, is because there's a reason. This person's really good at production, so just let them do that. This person's an amazing director. Just let them get on with it. Whereas I try to stay out of the way as much as I can. Like, things I'm good at is like things like talking to people, doing sales, doing marketing, coming up with some ideas. And that's, I think I just sort of restrain myself to that, and then just let
Yeah.
other people do.
I mean, it's clear that you now know your strengths as well, because again, if we think about what people struggle with, that's a huge one. Like the art of delegation, the art of knowing your strengths, but also the art of knowing what you're not good at,
Yeah,
because those bits that you're not good at in a business are the ones that, like you said, are causing that bottleneck. Because if we come back to that entrepreneurial mindset again, naturally we want to learn. We want to try and figure it out. We are a solution based species in the entrepreneurial world, and
yeah,
every problem we think, I can figure that out myself. But it's only
yeah,
when we, I guess, give yourself permission to be like, actually no, someone else can do that. Someone else is better than that. It's really great to hear that that happened to you as well, because thank you for being honest, because I think it happens to so many people. If we now talk about content, right? If we talk about people's views on it, I think over the last couple of years, the content production world has sort of exploded. 10 years ago, there would just never be a content agency. It was all sort of muddled into one. People are
yeah.
now obviously getting niched down and things like this. What's your view on it? What's your view on, over the last couple of years, content being at the forefront of a lot of just marketing strategies?
Um, I obviously I would say it's good because it's benefiting.
I mean, yeah.
Um,
If you said anything else than that, I'd be like, that's a bit odd.
no, I think you know what. You go to work, you listen to a podcast. That's what I do on the tube. You come home, you go on Netflix, binge watch a documentary series, or binge watch a box set,
Awful.
or you go on you go on Instagram and you watch short stories. And I think LinkedIn just today actually announced that they're going to do
LinkedIn
LinkedIn
stories.
stories.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, And I think, like, and just before we went on air, you mentioned how this podcast format is pretty unique, because people want to hear and drop in on long form conversations. You look at Joe Rogan. His podcasts are like 4 hours,
Yeah, two
5 hours
two
long.
hours minimum, pretty much.
And like, I find myself like listening to at least 2 hours of it before I fall asleep, or before I do something else. And then the next day I pick up where he left off. I think as human beings, we have this desire to just learn about how people do things.
Mm.
There is this kind of like branch of thought which says, okay, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. But I reckon it's the opposite, like through things like this, like, or the fact that people actually binge watch 8 hours of programs in one go.
Yeah,
You can't tell me the same person is like,
100%.
has a short attention span.
I also think that we as a species are just so interested in other people's lives,
Yeah,
that is why, because we have, obviously there's huge debate which I'm going to ask about in a minute, in terms of like short form, long form, what's the right content, and I'm sure there's not actually a correct answer. But when you just said that about Joe Rogan and 2 4 hour podcasts, it immediately made me think, actually we crave sort of that insight into people's lives, into people's businesses. And the more, let's just give a really bad crash example, but Keeping Up with the Kardashians is literally
Yeah.
about a show where you're just following people's lives,
Yeah.
and people got hooked on it. And it's the same with this podcast and other podcasts similar to that. People love it and get hooked on it because we're given a very unique insight into our lives. And I think
You
that
know,
ticks a big box in terms of people's desires.
you know, just following up from what you mentioned, it's the we have this real desire for delving deeper into the not just the superficial stuff. Like, yes, you run a podcast, you do this, but what made you do what you want to do? You could do whatever you want to do
Mm.
right now. And I think if someone's interested, or someone were to encounter that randomly, and it piques their interest, they will listen in, or they will, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
What is
whole,
making us on a Friday afternoon at 12:30 have this conversation?
exactly, and like, we have our own podcast, and each one's around an hour. It's not just about, okay, tell me all the facts about your life. You went to university here, you went to do this. It's more like, why did you do this?
Mm.
Why, what makes you who you are? And, like, what I was saying earlier is, like, once you say, okay, the reason I'm doing this is XYZ, and I came to this conclusion because of all the tiny little coincidences that brought me to life in that particular moment. And I think people love to hear that, and people love to explore.
Yeah.
Of course, we are busier than ever, but I think people love getting into the depths, and like, really exploring something.
Yeah.
If,
It
if
makes it so relatable though.
that,
Even if someone hasn't gone through it, or isn't even on that sort of wavelength or part of their journey yet, they can still respect it, and they still have that interest, and they
yeah,
still can relate to some part of the story on some level. And you mentioned about how most decent podcasts, and like yours and mine, are not just like, hey, where did you go to university, what did you study? Because that's the easy stuff. People, like, if I look on your LinkedIn profile, I'm sure it says that at the bottom, right? And if you look at anyone's profile, or you Google anyone, you can pretty much find out all the mandatory stuff that is out there. But
yeah,
people don't care about that. Like you said, they care about what did you learn? How did that affect you? How did you implement that? How can me as a listener relate to that? That's all the conversation is going on subconsciously in their head, which makes it a really interesting time. I said I was going to bring it up. Long form copy, short form copy. There's so many people out there, I think, now preaching about what's the quote unquote right thing to do. Like, this is the law of content to make it a success.
mm.
What's your view on all of this? I
So,
mentioned Gary Vee earlier, and you were like, I'm going to speak about him later, so this is a great time.
let's go back to, well, I want to go to Gary Vee later on, but what you said is really interesting, because it's more like, let's say you were to get your an eye operation, okay, and you the first thing you'd do is you'd research, okay, because you've only got two eyes. If something goes wrong, you've messed up, okay. So
Yeah.
you want to research every little thing about that. Or let's say you're going to make a big purchase, or buy a house, or buy a substantial purchase. You want to make sure that you read up everything about there is to know about something before you kind of delve in.
Mm.
So there is that, and people want to sort of explore that. Whereas the same content wouldn't be of interest to someone who's just sort of, let's say, browsing on Instagram. They're in a different kind of mode, where
Yeah.
if you're on Instagram and I want to sell you a washing machine, I wouldn't say this washing machine has this. I would just say, look, this is cool, it's new, and it's got lots of features. Like, I don't know, you can control it with your app, or you can control it with your with the voice command, whatever that
Yeah.
may be. And once I've got your interest, then I know that you want, you have a desire for finding out more. So you'd want to maybe research a bit more about, does it fit my, does it work with hard water or soft water? Does it, whatever that may be. Whereas, like, I think it's like, once people know that your product or service, or whatever you're trying to sell exists, and it's of relevance to them, then they will delve more deeper into it. Like the kind of the funnel,
Yeah.
the top of the funnel, people, you don't want to bore people, because no one wants to sort of go through a big kind of book. You
Yeah.
want to just have enough content to pique their interest, and once they're interested, then you'd sort of
Yeah,
give them more
you want to
information.
like start off with a fishing net, end up with a harpoon.
Exactly. Yeah. For in the example, if you were to use the example of I don't know why I came up with that. Um, you'd be like, I want to get my eyes lasered. Okay, there's a place around the corner from me, and then you'd be like, oh, it exists. And then the second thing you'd be like, oh, who's running it? Are they professional? Who's actually doing the operation?
Hmm.
You'd want to know. Have other people gone through it before? What kind of testimonials have they left, or have they got a Google review or Trustpilot or whatever? And that's when you're at your interest. You're not even thinking, oh, I want to get my, you're thinking, is this the right thing for me?
Yeah.
So at that moment, the content that you want to consume is different to what you would the top of the funnel, where it's very different. Um, yeah, I mean, well, yeah, that's what I think.
It's really interesting though, because all of those questions as well are often done without thinking. It's just the natural way we process information and process the discovery format. And now that there's so many bits of software out there to make people go through those thinking processes and thinking formats. For you, when you're working with a client or you're working on your own sort of strategy, what's the hardest part of really connecting with the right audience, really connecting with that person, and sort of getting that first trigger event to make them go through that thought process?
um, I think it's getting the attention. So it's not a case of um, you've got, let's say you've just invented the wheel, it's
I'm
not just,
loving your analogies, by the way.
they help me think actually, and, help me sort
I'm
of,
a big fan. I'm always putting an analogy to things.
let's say you've invented the wheel, right? A smart individual like yourself, it's possible that you would, or what you're doing
Obviously, yeah,
is good. But let's say you've come up with something really new that will literally make people's lives easier. There's a certain way of getting that to the market or getting the attention of who it's going to benefit the most. And there's a thing where I think it's like Google has this research called zero moment of truth. Okay, it's 7-4-11. So in order for human beings to trust one another or to build that relationship, you need to have 7 hours of interaction with that person or the good or the services, whatever that may be. 11 different interactions. So it's not just a case of, okay, let's speak on the phone, let's speak by email. It's more like 11 different interactions. So in the dating world, it's like, you go, let's say you're dating with someone on an app, you message them, you go out for a drink, and you continue the conversation. And then after 11 sort of separate interactions over 4 different mediums. So it's like the first time you may encounter this, a new service would be on, let's say, Instagram. And then a few weeks later, you see an article on a magazine, and maybe a few weeks later, you see an ad pop up on Google, and then finally, maybe a friend of yours is maybe bought or used that service, and you're like, oh, I've followed them through this journey, and then that's when you're most likely to trust and buy or even consider sort of going for
yeah,
that particular service. So the hardest thing at the moment, and for a lot of people, is getting the attention of the right person. Not, like as entrepreneurs, I think the mistake I would make was like, I would think, okay, this service is applicable for everyone.
mm,
Whereas the more what I learned and the more refined our services became, what I learned and what I gained the most as an entrepreneur, grew up with is like being very specialist in what you offer and to who you offer. So it's easy to get famous within a very small group of people or companies or services than it is to go after everyone.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, like the hardest thing is getting attention. But once you've got that attention, if you've got the right intention, if your product or service is the right thing, then people will be interested in taking you up.
Couldn't agree more. And I think now more than ever, if you can be focusing on that smaller group, let's put it that way, it's still a huge amount of people typically as well.
Yeah,
Whereas I think traditional, if we go back 10, 15, 20 years, a traditional more focused business when social media wasn't really around, it was so much more like, let's try and target as many people as possible,
Yeah.
let's have that sales phone book of 1,000 numbers that our little sales guys have to call every day,
Mm.
and play the numbers game. And I think it's switched now to having that sort of responsibility on both the marketing and the business owners' decisions to give them that harpoon and be like, actually, no, we're going after these specific individuals, because I think it's made and forced people to offer better services. It's
Yeah.
forced people to offer things that, or actually learn about things, what people want, which is
Yeah.
obviously makes the world a better place if we look at it that way. Um, for you, one of my next questions, I guess we can put it that way, is what's next for you? What's next for the interesting content business? What's next for your business career? Because I have no doubt you've got things in the pipeline.
Very good question, Stephen. I would say we know our customers really well. And we go after B2B businesses, SaaS businesses, and we got to know them really well to the degree of, okay, if you say to me, what are your customers doing right now? I can pretty much kind of say, okay, they're probably at the desk reviewing a whole load of emails or having conversation with someone, or they're having to meet the CEO and talk about targets they're going to be reaching for next year. And that understanding has allowed me to think, okay, if they are interested in content, then there are other services and products that they'll be interested. So we're going to be launching a whole series of products as well as services that is going to complement what we do. So the same person who purchases content or videos or the other things that we offer will be interested in a number of other things. So the next products series of products that will be, or services or websites we'll be launching, will be just to complement the issues and struggles our customers are going through. Um, and seeing, having a lot of fun with it. Actually, I think that's the thing.
That's it.
Like
Enjoy it.
what exactly. Like I think interesting content allows me and my team to actually use a part of our brain where we are being paid to come up with creative, fun ideas.
Yeah.
And my goal as the founder, as well as the person who oversees all these people, is to try and continue that as long as we can, have fun, surround ourselves with good people. I think the future is more about having being just, I'm not interested in just having a one-off transaction. I'm interested in really having a relationship with
Mm.
people where, let's say, a lot of our customers actually go from one company to another and they
Yeah.
take us with them.
And
So it's a
that
case of,
that's the thing. I think on that note right there, people want that now. They want to be with companies that know them, that get them, that understand them. They don't want to keep going through, on an annual basis, finding a new company to work with and going through that whole process again, when actually if you can find someone like yourselves where you're building that relationship on so many different levels, that means that your work with them is going to just be better, because obviously you're getting more information from them as well about them, but
mm,
they're also going to have that much nicer and more relaxed sort of relationship with you to yield them better results at the end of the day.
yeah, like the other thing is like we really care about our customers in terms of, we get people coming in and saying we want your help to create a video or animation, and a lot of the times we turn them away just because we know from a professional perspective that this isn't going to be useful for them.
Mm,
And we normally say to them, look, get these things right and then come and talk to us because you'll
yeah.
get more value out of it than us. And funnily enough, that's actually resulted in us getting more sales.
Yeah, I'm not
People will
surprised.
be like, if someone comes to you and says, "Yeah, I want to buy," and you're like, "Look, we're not going to let you purchase anything from us because you're not ready," um, it comes from the place of, okay, we have your best interest at
Yeah.
heart. We could work with anyone we want to, but we choose to work with people who have XYZ already in
Mm,
place. So when we do work with them, it will fly rather than, okay, here's a short-term deal. Our quarters sales figures are going to be met. Let's just take this money and never see them again. It's more like, especially if you care about your reputation,
yeah.
it's more like, okay, how do we create an advocate, or how do we create a customer for life, or a contact, even if they don't um, be, even if they don't buy from us right now, there and then. It's more like,
Mm,
how can we just maintain this relationship?
yeah. And
So,
that I
Yeah.
think in an industry that is so incredibly noisy, having that attitude allows your customers again to earn respect with you, but also, even if they do go off with another firm, at least you know that they're going off with those foundations in place. Because I
Yeah.
feel like from a consumer's point of view, I think there is so much noise, so I can completely understand why people are coming to you saying, "Hey, I really want to do the step 7," but they haven't done step 1, 2, or 3 yet,
Yeah.
because they're probably not even aware that you have to do step 1, 2, or 3 to get step 7.
Yeah.
So kudos to you with having those values. I think it's so important, and obviously it's working because you've built an incredibly successful business and you're growing. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I guess my final question has to be: are you a fan of Gary Vee or not? Then.
You know what? I think as a whole, Gary Vee is amazing. But I think he himself has grown up, and we've watched him grow from the first videos that he's put out to what it is now. I mean, who am I to be able to hold a candle to Gary Vee? But I just think part of what his messages are, and part of what his peers who are in the same kind of game are advocating, is there are incredible successes and highs involved with setting up your business, as any founder who may be listening will agree. But also there are incredible lows that don't really get accentuated.
Mm,
And also, you've got to have a good balance. You don't want to burn yourself out
yeah,
and lose heart, the moment you face your biggest hurdle.
yeah,
It's more like, you just got to keep going over a long period of time. And, I'm genuinely interested in get rich slow rather than instant results.
yeah.
I want to
It's the way to be.
I want to have a six pack, but I'll give myself 10 years to do it. It's more like, you instant results don't exist. And
Yeah.
even if they do, they're built on very shaky foundations. Whereas I'm
Mm,
interested in long-term achievable results where you don't lose your soul
yeah.
and you don't consume yourself. Um, and you take it in your own pace and you take it one step at a time.
Well, what a perfect way to finish this conversation. But I do lie. I guess my final question is: how can people find out more about you?
Yeah, they could go to interestingcontent.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Suds Singh, interesting content. Um, and, I'm more than happy to help out anyone if I can. Like I was saying earlier, I'm in it for the long run,
Mm,
so we're not going to go anywhere. The whole business is self-funded, and everything has been made through the hard work of myself and my colleagues. We're independent, so we don't have any pressures to show results that will be incompatible with our values and what we want to do. And
yeah,
so far, touch wood, we're in control of our destiny.
you're doing good.
Um, yeah.
No, it's so great to see, and I want to thank you for your time. I think I completely agree on get rich slow. If you look at any businesses over the last 100 years that have really, climbed to the top, they've done it slowly. They've done it, with troubles, with struggles, and it really is the only way. So thank you for
Yeah.
your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for having me, and I wish you all the best with this, and hopefully we can keep in touch.
Yeah, we will. Don't you worry. Thank you so much for your time. And thanks to everyone else for watching and listening. This has been Founders 365.
Take care.